Hi everyone, thank you for coming and attending this talk. I'm so glad to be here and thank you to the Elevate conference team for giving me this amazing opportunity. Before we get to the main presentation, let me quickly introduce myself. Hi, I'm Ria and I'm currently working as a software engineer in the fintech industry. Over the course of my career, I worked with multiple database systems and evaluated different technologies. I especially enjoy breaking down complex concepts into easy, understandable bits and sharing my learnings with everyone. Apart from this, I'm also very passionate about organizing outreach initiatives for women in STEM and giving back to the community in whatever way possible. In my free time, I love to read books and I also enjoy playing my musical instruments. So, around 4 years ago, when I started my professional journey, I quickly realized the importance of communication. I have learned that it doesn't really matter what you work on if you're not able to share that knowledge and communicate that understanding with others. Be it the exciting new feature that you are working on or the super cool product, if people around you don't understand how it works, it is probably not good enough. So, improving your communication skills can open many doors for you in your professional career, which brings me to my next point that documentation is communication. I think that it is one of the most important aspects of software development that not just helps you but also others around you in their journey. We view it as the boring post development task that just needs to be done, but it's much more than that. It's a key to sharing understanding and it's surely more than just the transfer of information. But the question is, why should I care? Well, to convince you, I have listed some points that have personally impacted me in my career journey and hope they'll be helpful. Starting with that it's a knowledge hub. So, whenever I have to start a new project or I have to work on something that is unfamiliar to me, it's actually the well written docs that come to my rescue and help me get started. When members of my team come and thank me for the documents, the easy to follow documents that I have written, it's honestly a great feeling. And all it takes is that one call in the middle of the night informing you about the production issue that makes you realize the value of good technical documents. Those easy to follow steps and instructions can really help you efficiently resolve the issue. And also remember that good documentation makes you dispensable. So, we often have this tendency of holding our code hostage where only we understand its secrets and we think that it's a power move. Well, actually, it backfires, and you should, in fact, do the exact opposite. You should set it up in a way so that other developers, or even the non technical people can understand it. So, when you work in this way, when you create software that can easily be handed over, you are setting yourself up to take bigger and better opportunities and also enjoy your vacations peacefully. So it's easy for you to delegate and transfer that ownership with proper documentation. Also, this documentation comes as a savior for yourself, for the future you. When we are solving that painstaking bug, we always tell ourselves that this is something that I'll never forget, how I've conquered this. But we usually do. And that is where documentation comes to our rescue. It's not just a guide for others, but it's also a lifeline for your own memory, helping you recall all the crucial details. So next time when you're stuck on that bug or the number of steps you had to navigate to actually reach the solution, document all that and trust me, it will really help the future you. Last but not the least, it helps you showcase your work. It enhances your visibility at your workplace. So by documenting things that you have worked on, you can attract more opportunities while also telling the people that you're perfectly capable of sharing that knowledge with others. I hope these points were able to convince you about the importance of good technical documentation, and now I want to share my top 10 tips that I've learned by writing multiple documents that would surely help you improve your documentation style. Starting with conciseness. Conciseness is really important. The moment I open a TED talk and not getting overwhelmed with the information I'll have to deal with is one of the most important aspects. So you should aim to write the shortest, most practical, self-contained document possible. Aim for the right length. Too long, nobody reads it. Too short, it might miss out on some of the important information. The extent to how much you'll explain will vary depending upon the use case. So for example, in some cases, it doesn't really matter to write lengthier documents, like if you're writing a tutorial or you're explaining some feature in detail. In other cases, it will be better to provide some basic context and add links so the reader can, follow later if they're interested to learn more about the subject matter. Always prioritize readability. Now, this cannot be stressed enough, but your document becomes 1,000 times better when it's more readable. No one wants to read a blob of text. Your documentation is, in fact, not a novel. Users, have this tendency to often scan rather than reading it line by line. So they are looking for the information quickly. They want to skim through the information and find the useful bits which might help them get unstuck. How you can do that is through lists. Now, I really love lists. They are simple, they organize your ideas, they prevent that information overload, doesn't overwhelm the reader, and they're easy to understand. The readers will actually appreciate you if you can write the information in a bullet format. Other things that you can keep in mind is having a table of contents section, so the users can quickly skim and know if the document is worth their time. Using proper subheadings and headings that relate to the text. Using fancy subheadings is cool, but at the same time, you need to realize that the user should understand if they should invest their time in reading that text just from the subheading. Well-spaced paragraphs. Use spacing in your favor. Well-spaced paragraphs is a great way to enhance the readability. And also using bold for keywords. When we use bold, our purpose should be to grab the attention of the users. But overdoing it will kill that purpose. If everything is in bold, the user will not understand what should they focus on and what they should avoid. Adding visual aids. I honestly really enjoy using visual aids in my documents, like flowcharts, diagrams, even screenshots for that matter. It enhances the understanding bit of the document, and it just saves time. People can directly look at the screenshot or the diagram and relate to the steps that they have to perform. Next, formatting your code samples. An equally important bit. Having consistent indentation, syntax highlighting, beautifying your documentation that enhances the readability. An example on your screen of properly indented code, like having a separate box, having your code samples in there, what to do, what not to do, clearly defining that. If you have commands, give them their due importance and add them to separate boxes so that they're easier to spot and the user can quickly use them for their required purpose. This point, I guess, is one of the most talked about tip when it comes to technical documentation, and I personally struggle with it sometimes. Sometimes we are not really sure who would be reading this document, who is our target audience. And if you do too, then it's always a great way to assume the level to be beginners. There could be cases where you're writing for your internal team, where you can write in whatever way you want to. You can use terms, acronyms related to your project and application. But if you do not know, always assume the level to be beginners and write it in that way so that it's helpful for everyone. How you can do that? First is avoiding technical jargon. Not assuming that all your readers will be familiar with industry-specific terms. Define the acronyms. Rather than saying RPC, say remote procedure calls. And again, it's perfectly fine to use jargon in some cases. What you could maybe do is have links that the user can later refer to or read about if they are interested to know about it. And a great tip would be to add some like a prerequisite section at the top of your documentation, letting the readers know what they need to know before getting started or before delving into this document. Simplicity always wins. This is one of the most important aspects of technical documentation, and trust me, your users will thank you for using non-complicated, easy to follow language. Simplicity always wins over complexity. Please remember, you are not taking a GRE exam. Your aim over here is to transfer that knowledge in the most basic, most easy to follow manner. And for that, avoid using any complicated fancy terms like the example on your screen. Maybe we always have this list of tips with us of how to write a good document, but we often struggle to start that tech doc. So this is something which I really struggle with. Seeing that blank page just worries me that and gives me that uncomfortable feeling of how exactly I should start. So what I usually do is that I often think that the first draft would be bad. I convince myself and it works. It tells my brain to get out of that perfection rut and actually get started. Now this helps me define the outline first, then include the table of content section. Maybe I start to understand who I am writing this document for, defining the paras, how I want them to be, and as and how I keep on writing through multiple iteration, it gets better and better. But the key here is to get started. First draft, let it be bad. The first draft will be bad, but you need to get started. Also, write in a way that you usually speak. Writing, without sounding too smart, try to keep the tone conversational and approachable. Like I tend to use you a lot. Like you will be directed to this page, click on this, add these configurations, and so on and so forth. Imagine you are talking to a colleague, explaining that information to a colleague. Because please remember that this document is also for the future you. By using a conversational tone about how you have that information in your head and how you're writing it down, you're really helping your future self also revise that information and recall all the crucial details quickly. So it's like teaching it to someone, and when time comes, you will be the one to thank yourself that okay, thank God I wrote it in this manner. Now I find this particular picture really funny and relatable, and it has happened to me multiple number of times. So the crux here is to document it for yourself, keeping the future you in mind. And finally, seeking feedback and verifying the instructions. So sometimes while writing, we assume that this is something which everybody would know. But when you share it with others and seek feedback, that reveals those gaps of like some statements being ambiguous, some information not being clear, or something that requires more clarification. So maybe it made sense to you, but not to others. That is how you improve your document. Also, always verify the instructions that you have added in the document. For example, there is a list of commands. Try to run those commands yourself before finally submitting that document for others to see. Having a command missing in that series of commands can be one of the most frustrating experiences, and I really don't want that to happen to anybody. So as you seek feedback with multiple iterations, your document will become better and better. Finally, we come to an end, and it's all about practicing. That is the conclusion. I am still learning new things from reading other people's documents, from learning good practices, making mistakes, seeking feedback, updating my previously written docs, and getting better with each doc that I write. I learn to write by writing. So thank you. I wish you happy documenting. Thank you again for staying till the end. Hope this was useful. I'm happy to answer any questions or any feedback that you might have for me, or if you just want to bond over books, tech, or music, I'm glad to do that. Thank you again, and have a lovely day ahead.